Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single week and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Tiny Talks. I hope you're all having a wonderful week. I know we've been getting quite a bit of snow, so I've been enjoying lots of time outside, trying to just escape. I went snowshoeing on the weekend, so that was super fun. So I hope you're finding lots of ways to be creative this winter and to get outside and just enjoy it every single day as much as possible. So for today's episode, this is something that I had been sitting here for a little while just contemplating how I wanted this episode to go. And I figured, the whole preface of this episode is based around holding yourself back. And I figured I've prepped as much as possible. It's time to just take a leap of faith and jump on here and see what happens. And I think that that's kind of the theme for what we're going to talk about today is just that, trusting the process, taking a leap of faith. And so for today, I'm going to share with you guys 7 destructive habits that might or might not be holding you back from achieving your optimal, highest potential of success. So skipping back about a month ago, I had found myself in a huge rut. So I was not doing my daily non-negotiables. I was not following up with people in my business as I should have been. I was not uploading podcasts as I should have been. I was neglecting working out and eating properly. And I was just, in all honesty, not doing very well. And so a lot of this was stemmed from my mental health, but it was also stemmed from not having a clear vision or a list or really optimal highlight of where I wanted my life to go. So basically I felt like I was just kind of drifting. I was doing things because I felt like I should or like I had to, but I never really had an exact reason behind what I was doing, even though I kind of thought that I did. And so what I mean by that is I knew that I had a passion for my businesses and for Young Living and for doing the podcast, but I never really had like a huge why or what I wanted out of it or how I'm going to feel when I hit that goal. And so right off the bat, even saying that, you can see, we're shooting for something, but we don't really know what the target is or what we want to land on. So we can get stuck shooting for something for so long and doing all this work and burning ourselves out, when in reality, we could actually be pouring our energy into lots of different pools that don't even benefit the end goal that we're trying to get to. So I recognized that I was doing that, and I realized that I couldn't go on like that anymore. I was burnt out. I wasn't happy. I recognized that I had fallen away from my goals. And so I recognized that I needed to make a shift, a serious shift, if I really wanted to be successful, to have momentum, and to be consistent. That is a huge thing that was lacking in my day-to-day life, was consistency. And without consistency, we cannot have momentum. And without momentum, we will often stay staggered. So for today, I'm excited to share with you the 7 destructive habits that I have been guilty of doing all of these. And so I truly hope that by shedding light on some of these, maybe it allows you to do some self-reflection to see if maybe you've been doing some of these destructive habits that are holding you back from that goal or that thing that you really want to go for. Because the thing is, you guys, is we all have those ideas and those ambitions and things that come up in us, right? It's like our imagination just starts to flow with ideas and all these things. And oftentimes we shut that down, right? We think it's not good enough. We think it's not relevant. No one will like it. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have this. I don't have that, right? And we get so stuck in that rut of just blockages. I can't do this, block. Can't do that, block. An excuse, block, right? We don't even allow our minds to just explore and expand. But I've said this before on this podcast. Picture anything in your surroundings. Maybe it's the vehicle you're driving. If you're sitting at home, maybe it's the fireplace, right? The fridge, literally absolutely anything that you can look at. That was once an imagination, an idea in somebody's mind. So that just proves that everything that we have once started as a thought, right? We all have such good ideas, and we never know which one of our ideas will be successful if we don't put in the work and believe in ourselves that it is possible. So the first destructive habit that I have on here that I want to talk about that really I fell into for quite a while, and that is seeking approval. So let's say you thought of this really great idea. The first thing a lot of us like to do, and I'm guilty of this, is running and telling people. We're running to tell our loved ones or our partner or our friends, people that we think are going to have our best interest at heart and are going to support us no matter what. But the thing is, you guys, is we don't all necessarily think the same or have the same vision, right? If we think back, that was an imagination that you had in your mind. That was a thought. Nobody else knows exactly what that thought is or how it made you feel the same way that you do, right? So if we have this really great idea and we believe in that, but we tell our friend and our friend doesn't really see that vision, oftentimes we kind of cut it right there. Like, okay, I'm not going to do this thing because my one friend told me that I shouldn't, or my parents told me that that might not be the best idea. But I can guarantee you that there is so much in our world right now that we rely on that was once an idea in someone's mind, and lots of people probably thought it was a terrible idea. It's crazy to think how much we allow others to influence the things that we know in our heart that we want to do. So you need to learn to listen to your thoughts and imagination and to honor those. If it's speaking to you, know that it's speaking to you for a reason, likely because that is in alignment for what you are supposed to be doing. So the first destructive behavior is seeking approval. So how can you work towards believing in yourself? Knowing and believing in what your ideas are, that you can do anything you set your mind to. I'm now at such a point where I don't care what other people think of what I'm doing. If it sparks joy in me and brings joy to me, and it's something that I'm doing from the time I wake up till the time I go to sleep, it doesn't affect anybody else. So why are we so dependent on their approval when in reality it doesn't even affect their life at all? So pay attention to how much you're allowing yourself and your success to be dependent upon other people's approval. The second destructive habit that I have on here is blaming others. And what I mean by this is blaming others for all the shoulda, coulda, woulda, this, that, all those excuses we have, right? We like to blame that on other people because it's easier. It's a lot easier to look back and blame other people for why we didn't do the things instead of putting in clear boundaries to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to do the things that we want to do, right? We can play the victim game all we want of why we didn't do all these things. And yes, of course, there are special circumstances outside of the regular norm that could influence this. But I'm talking just that mentality of not doing things and putting blame on other people. Oh, well, if this person would have done this, maybe I could have. Or if that would have went that way, maybe I could have done it, right? It's that world's out to get me mentality, which oftentimes does come from a protective part of us that don't want to have that realization for ourselves that we are the only ones in control of our actions. And the quickest that we realize that we are our own person and we are the only ones that have control over our actions, the sooner we'll be able to get our butts in gear of knowing that nobody else can be held accountable for the things that we are and aren't doing. Nobody else can make success for us. We have to do that ourselves. We are taught that from such a young age. Think about taking a test in school, and you and your best friend both take the same test, and this person gets a 95 and you flunk it, you fail. Are you going to blame that person for your failure? Or are you going to recognize that maybe I should have studied harder? Maybe I should have paid more attention in class. Maybe I should have asked that friend for some guidance, right? We always have the ability to take control of our actions and responsibility for that. And by blaming others, it actually just prolongs how destructive that behavior will be and how long it will take you to achieve your goal. You need to be 100% accountable for you and know that you are the only one that can help you get closer and closer to your success. Now, going off of success, what does that mean, right? What does success mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to our neighbors? It is different for all of us of what we want our success, what we want our goals to look like. And I think that that is quite beautiful, because can you imagine if we all had the same goal or all viewed success as the same thing? Oh my goodness, we would be trampling each other over, right? That is what makes us all unique beings and makes us stand out, is that we are all different and have different ideas and different goals. And so the third destructive habit that I have on here is not labeling your goal, not labeling what that success is to you, right? Again, if we're trying to chase something, but we don't know what it is we're chasing, we're going to be running for a really long time. And this is an example commonly used when it comes to making a goal, but think about building a house. You don't just go to the store, grab a couple things, and hope you have enough to build the house. No, you make a plan, you make a blueprint. You have an idea of what you're doing. With a blueprint means a clear visualization. It's a layout, right? Then you start with the foundation. Then you build up from there. But if you just start with the roof of the house with no plan, your house is going to tumble over, right? It's not going to be sustainable. And that's the exact same thing with our goals. If we are not crystal clear on what our goals are, how we are going to achieve them, but also what it's going to look like when we achieve them, we really are just running in a circle. And I'm not saying we always know the exact outcome or exactly how we're going to get there. But it's pretty much the oldest quote that there is, which is fake it till you make it. And I don't mean that as far as, like I said, just hoping to figure it out. But figure it out as you go, but also work backwards. What is the end result of this thing that I'm doing? Okay, what's one step backwards that I can do? What is a time frame set on that? Something achievable, right? We think of the SMART acronym for setting a goal. The M is measurable. How can we measure if we are getting closer to our goal? Right? What evidence do we have that supports that all this work that we are doing is indeed paying us off and getting closer to where we want to be? So undefined goals are one of the largest reasons why we are unsuccessful as humans, is because we're just running like chickens with our heads cut off without knowing what the end goal is. So get crystal clear on those goals. Write them down. Visualize them, right? We are over 40% more likely to achieve something just by writing it down, because our mind is able to have that idea clearly without it just being a question mark. If it is concrete in our mind and we know we can achieve it, we are then the only ones holding ourselves back. So get clear on those goals. The next one that I have on here, number 4. And this one I think a lot of us are guilty of when it comes to starting something new, or is a huge blockage for lots of folks when running a business or just anything. And that is self-doubt. Self-doubt is a dream killer. You will not be successful if you keep doubting yourself. You will not be successful if you keep doubting yourself, period. And I know that that sounds harsh, but it's so true. If we think of our mind and how it works, our mind does not know the difference between reality and what we tell ourselves. And so if we're telling ourselves that we are not worthy, we are not capable, we will not be successful, this is not going to work out, what are people going to think? I don't have this figured out, I don't have that figured out. And that is the spiral of energy that we are circling and manifesting around us. Our brain literally does not have the capacity to get out of that unless we consciously bring awareness to, I might not have it all figured out right now, but I know that I'm going to figure it out because I have done it before, right? Even just instilling a little bit of belief in ourselves that what we are doing, we can achieve it. And it's so cheesy to say, but it's so true, and it's so frustrating because each and every one of us is so worthy and so beyond capable of anything we set our minds to. Like, we are beyond capable of anything we put our mind to. Think of anything you've achieved thus far. I guarantee you at one point in your life, you did not think that that was possible. But guess what? It is possible. We have so much in us that we can give. We have so much endless possibilities. All of our minds have the capacity to change, right? To begin to think differently. That's why our brain is constantly laying down new neural pathways. Our brain is always changing and scanning and analyzing. And so the quicker that we can catch ourselves doubting ourselves and also asking ourselves those hard questions of maybe why, right? Is this something that's been ingrained in us from childhood? Were we always told that we are not worthy or capable of doing things? Right? What thoughts do we have, or what evidence do we have to back up the thoughts that we're having? Was this something that someone once told us? How can that be proved to be true now? And I know these questions can be hard to ask ourselves, so I definitely encourage you, if this is one that is really hard for you and you're really struggling with self-doubt, I definitely encourage you to speak to a mental health professional. This was something that I suffered with for quite a few years. And I've shared a little bit about my personal story before, but basically, to say it super quickly, I had played basketball for pretty much my whole life. And I went on to play college basketball, and it was during this time that I had a coach who unfortunately coached a little differently than I viewed as being the best approach, where he felt the need to tell me I was not a good three-point shooter. I was not a good basketball player. What am I doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You can't do this. You can't do that. Right? And so I very much felt for years after that I'm not a good basketball player because he told me, even though I knew in the back of my mind that I had won several three-point competitions. I was player of the game several games. I was the captain my grade 12 year. I led multiple rec leagues and things. I coached on the side. I was in basketball academies all through summer and through the spring. Right? I took basketball very seriously. And I allowed the opinion of one person to take away my identity that surrounded that. And I never thought that I would get that back until I recognized that his thoughts and his words don't make them true. Those are his thoughts. Again, that doesn't make it true. People like to tell us things from hurt within themselves, from anger within themselves, and they will try to bring us down, which can lead to self-doubt. And so the reason I got onto all this is because that instilled a lot of doubt in myself that I couldn't do a lot of things. And so it took a long time, but I finally did go and see a psychologist for a couple years. And it helped me slowly over time gain that self-dignity back, that worth back that I had lost and I didn't think I could ever get back. And that's why I'm sharing this with you right now, because had I tried to start my business before going to therapy and before healing myself, I would have constantly been in that same cycle of self-doubt and that I can't do something. But the thing is, you guys, again, is like with any of these things, as we continue to prove our mind wrong and show that we are worthy, we can do this, we can do these things, we are crushing our goals, our mind is slowly going to rewire itself to see that we can do these things, to feel safe again in the world. So that was just a long-winded way of saying that self-doubt can hold you back, but this is something that I do hold very near and dear to my heart because I know what it's like to feel like, how could I ever possibly be successful? But now I just think, how could I possibly ever not be successful? There's no difference between me and anybody else except for I know in my mind that I can do anything I set my mind to. But that did take a while to get there. So pay attention to how much you're doubting yourself and those conversations that you're having with your mind. Number 5, feeding distractions. Get rid of the distractions. And this is where some clear boundaries are going to have to come into place. We are so guilty of holding ourselves back from success because we have too many distractions, too many excuses, right? Binge watching movies end on end, playing video games, scrolling on our phones endlessly, right? Doing all these things that, yes, are great and are a part of life, and there's a right time and place for that. But if you are trying to achieve a goal and you are trying to be as successful as possible, that is not going to happen with all the distractions that are in your life. It just simply isn't. I've tried to accommodate that and try to, mend things together, and I can just watch this show while I'm working on something. Your mind isn't fully committed to what it is that you're doing. And so it's so important to get clear again on those goals, what it is you're going to do. What are your daily non-negotiables? And then as a reward, maybe you're allowed, I don't want to say allowed, you're giving yourself X amount of time at the end of the day to watch your favorite show, or to play your video game, or to do the things that you love to do, right? We are still human. We still have to have that balance. But it is so important that we kill those distractions 99% of the time, so we can stay focused and have that momentum for where it is that we want to go. And this is the hardest one to get rid of, but I promise you, when you are able to get clear boundaries for yourself and hold yourself accountable, not only will that push you closer towards success and momentum, but your self-esteem and your self-worth will flourish substantially just for holding yourself accountable and following through with that. That raises our self-worth incredibly much so. So figure out what those distractions are, or those things are that chime in when you're trying to work on your goals. What are those excuses and things that you keep circling back to? How can you get clear boundaries with those things? Number 6, staying in your comfort zone. I have a whole podcast about your comfort zone and taking a leap of faith. Simply put on this one, nothing ever grows in our comfort zone. Nothing. We know it too well. We're comfortable there. Why would we take risks or try anything new or feel uncomfortable if we know that that's safe for us? But do you really want to live your whole life doing the same things, eating the same food, listening to the same music, going to the same places with the same people at the same time, right? That's going to get old. And how exciting is it to try new things, to get out of our comfort zone, to challenge ourselves, right? We as humans have become so comfortable being comfortable that even the thought of getting outside of our comfort zone is so overwhelming for our system. But if we slowly, again, our body learning and readapting, if we slowly are able to get out of our comfort zone more and try new things and notice how that feels and retrain our mind that taking risks can be safe, right? We're going to learn that it is okay, and actually a whole light at the end of the tunnel when we are able to take risks and get outside of our comfort zone. So staying in your comfort zone is definitely very destructive on trying to get your optimal success. And the last one that I have on here is waiting for the perfect time, waiting to be ready, waiting for that something. And that is just it, you guys. How do you measure that? When I hear people say, I'm just waiting for the right time, I'm waiting to be ready, you will never, ever, ever be ready, because your mind is going to self-doubt yourself, keep you in your comfort zone, and keep you going in the same circle, right? You can see how a lot of these intertwine and are related to each other, right? If we're seeking approval and we don't get it, we'll then often blame each other people. If we have a lot of self-doubt, we'll often stay in our comfort zone. If we're in our comfort zone, we often have a lot of distractions. If we're unclear in our goals, we'll often have a lot of distractions, right? So waiting for the perfect time, I think, is so backwards. Because just think, if you got started today, in a week from now, you're already a week more knowledgeable than you were a week ago. And then 2 weeks goes on. Who is to say what would happen in those 2 weeks? A year goes on. Imagine if you waited a whole year to start, but instead you just got started. Think how much more momentum you have just by starting. So if you're wanting to try something new, if you have a new goal, a new business idea, a new thing, sit down with yourself and just Go for it. Write it down. How am I slowly going to incrementally make small goals to achieve my big goal? How am I going to start today so I can get 1% better today, 1% better tomorrow, 1% better the next day, and so on? All these 7 things are so destructive of achieving our optimal success, but it's all things that oftentimes happen right in your mind, right? All things that we tell ourselves based on experiences, the people that we know, the things that we've been through. But that all changes the moment that we decide that we want it to change. The moment we decide that we are worthy of that change, even if we don't know what that looks like yet. So I definitely encourage you to sit down with yourselves and go through each of these 7 things. How has that maybe been playing into your life? How have you maybe been seeking others' approval? How have you been blaming other people? How have you been unclear in your goals? How have you been self-doubting yourself? How have you been feeding into your distractions? How have you been staying in your comfort zone? And are you waiting for that perfect time? Having these hard conversations with ourselves and again getting out of our comfort zone is how we grow, how we learn, and how we thrive as humans. I truly hope you guys benefited from this episode and take something away and go for that thing that you've been dreaming about. You are so worthy and you can do absolutely anything you set your mind to. I promise you that. I hope you're all having a wonderful week and I am so excited to chat with you all soon. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. If you're looking to connect, you can find me on Instagram at JessieBrown13. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.